Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm looking at the new Cricut Joy from a card maker's perspective. The Cricut Joy was kindly sent to me from Cricut UK and releases on the 1st of March 2020. The Cricut Joy is a compact and portable electronic die cutting machine. It's been made so that you can quickly and easily create projects in 15 minutes or less. The Cricut Joy works with Cricut Design Space and is connected via Bluetooth, so you can use it with your desktop, tablet or mobile phone. As you can see, there are no buttons in the Cricut Joy, everything is done via Design Space. It has one clamp which can hold the blade or a pen and cuts up to 50 different materials. So let's get started with our first project. So for my first project, I'm actually going to create a card that is already made via Design Space. So it's already kind of ready to go and you don't really have to do much. So I'm going into Design Space here, and as you can see, there are lots of different projects that you can create that people have already created, and you can just kind of, all the guesswork is done for you, so you don't have to worry about anything and you can just make something straight away. I do apologise that the footage from my computer is a little bit on the blurry side, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So I've got all of these different cards here that I could make, and I've decided to make the congrats one. I thought that this was fairly similar to the kind of cards that I would make anyway, but I really love that, like I said, everything is done for you. So when you click into it, you can see the description of the project. It tells you the finished size, the materials you need, any other tools or anything like that. It tells you how to make it, how to cut it, and then how to assemble it. And there are also links to other things if you need help with that as well. So I'm going to click on Make It, and it's going to come up telling me to add the card into the mat, or what mat I'm going to use. So I have plugged in my Cricut Joy here into the power socket. Like I said, it connects via Bluetooth, so there's no USB cables or anything like that. The light has come on the top, so you know that it's working. And now I'm going to grab the card stock that I'm going to use. These are insert cards from Cricut. They've been made specifically to work with the Cricut Joy, and this is the new Cricut Joy Card Mat. This doesn't come with the machine, you do have to purchase it separately, but it's really great for making cards because it can cut the top of the card base and not cut the inside, so you can cut directly on the card base, which is really great. So what I'm going to do here is take the card, and then I'm going to insert that into the card mat. I'm going to make sure that it's completely up to the top of the card mat, and then stick that down onto the sticky surface. I have already removed the film off of that. On Cricut Design Space, I'm going to press Customize, and then it's going to find my machine via Bluetooth. I am using a desktop. I'm then going to pick the material that I want to use, and like I said, the Cricut Joy does cut up to 50 different materials. There are a few that it will cut that aren't actually listed here, and I do cut one of them later on in the video, but otherwise there's lots of different materials it can cut, and you can press all of the different settings. This is so that the Cricut Joy knows how deep to cut with the blade, and obviously what material you're using does make a difference. So I'm going to click on the Insert cardstock setting, because that's the setting for those card sets that I have I'm going to use. So it tells me now that I want to make sure that the blade is in the clamp and insert the card mat into the Cricut Joy. So I'm just doing that now in real life, and then it comes up telling me that it's going to align the mat, and then once it's aligned I can then press go, and then it's going to go through the screen and show that it's cutting it, and obviously that has sent that to the Cricut Joy here. So this is me inserting that card mat into it. It goes all the way through and comes back. That's so that it knows to make sure that the mat is straight, and also it knows how kind of long the material is that you've added inside, so that it knows if it's going to have enough space to cut it or not as well. And now it's going to actually cut the material here. I have left the noise in this portion because I wanted you to be able to hear what it sounds like, because this does make a difference if you especially have small children, maybe for example, when they're sleeping. This machine is, I mean, it does obviously make a noise like any electronic die cutting machine does, but I do think it's a little bit quieter than the Cricut Maker, for example. And so, like I said, I just wanted to keep it in so that you can hear this. So the Cricut Joy is cutting into the top portion of the card base, and it's not cutting all the way through, which I just think is amazing. I'm hoping that they will bring out this feature into the Cricut Maker as well, and be able to have this card mat on a larger scale. Obviously this card mat will only fit inside the Cricut Joy and not the Cricut Maker or the Explore because of the size of it, but like I said, I'm hoping that they will bring out this feature in the future for the other machines. So this necessarily isn't a card that I would probably make as a card maker, and I'm sure lots of you that are card makers are probably going to think the same thing, but this has endless possibilities because you can cut your own design into the front of a card base. You could put acetate behind, you could make a flat shaker card, you can create window cards. Honestly, the possibilities are endless with what you can actually create with this tiny little machine. So it's just finishing up cutting here, and then just showing you what happens in Design Space. It says that it's completely cut, and then it says that it's complete. So you just click on there and then it will release the mat from the machine. So you can just say finish there at the bottom. You can recut it if you wanted to. If you wanted to create the same thing twice or however many times you wanted to. Otherwise you can just press finish, and then I'm removing that from the machine, and that's cut out really beautifully onto that Cricut card. Now I'm just being really careful to try and remove that from the card mat. Ideally you would want to remove the mat from the material, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more tricky with this particular mat because it's a bit more rigid, but as you can see some of the pieces have come out, which is really great because I can keep hold of those, and then the other ones that haven't, they just pop out really nicely like any other die cutting machine. So I'm just going to remove all of those little pieces there. And then that's all of it removed, and like I said, you could add acetate or anything like that to the back of this card, but the Cricut ones are made so that they have those little notches in the side, and the card packs come with inserts as well in lots of different colours. I did use a different colour than the pack that I shared on screen, so I'm just inserting that into the little notches at the side, and that is a card made in about 5 minutes, which personally I think is amazing. I could embellish that, like add some extra embellishments to it to kind of make it my own, but it's really great, like I said, that you can kind of just make it straight out the bat, 5 minutes or less, and you've got a card. Next, I wanted to create a card that was kind of more in my style of card making. So I'm going back into Design Space here and I'm pressing New for a new canvas. And then I want to create a sentiment die cut. So I'm going into the images here, and at the top I'm going to type in thanks. And that's going to show all of the different images that are already available in Cricut Design Space. Some of these are paid, you have to pay for them, and some of them are free. So I'm just going through and seeing which one I like. I could make this myself, just typing out a font, but I thought it was quite nice that this is already made for me. So I'm going to add that into my canvas, and then here I can change the size, I can do lots of different things with it. This is just a really simplified version of what I'm doing today or with Design Space. There are tons of different tutorials and things like that on YouTube which go through it really well, better than I'm probably doing now, but I just wanted to really show the basics here. So I'm going to make this design a little bit smaller. I do want it to be fairly small on the front of my card, so I'm just minimizing the size of that. I do tend to go and grab a ruler at this point. I do struggle sometimes to figure out in terms of measurements when it's written what it actually is going to look like on my card base, so I tend to grab a ruler and a card front so that I can see actually what size I want. I had originally made it a bit smaller, and then I did make it a slightly bit bigger after that as well. So that's, once I'm happy with that, I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to cut it 3 times. I don't necessarily need to cut it 3 times from glitter cardstock, which is what I'm going to use first. But the second time I cut it, I'm going to cut it twice from white cardstock so that I can stack them all up on top of each other. So I just wanted to show you that now. So once I'm happy with that, I can say make it. And this time I'm going to click on that I'm going to use a normal mat. And then it's going to show me here how they're going to cut. I can move them about because they automatically kind of line up, which is great because that's what I personally want for this cut. But if you wanted to move them around, you could. And next I'm going to pick my material. So this time I'm going to pick glitter cardstock, and I'm going to use Tonic's glitter cardstock, and this cut out really beautifully on the glitter cardstock setting. So again, it's telling me that I need the blade in the Cricut Joy, and then I can insert the mat. And once I insert the mat, it's going to align it for me, and then once it's happy that everything is lined up, I can press go. Because of me making the video, I am doing this slightly out of sync, but I would have already done this before I'd pressed go and everything like that on the Cricut Joy in Design Space. So this is the standard grip mat for the Cricut Joy. I'm just removing that film to show the adhesive. So the front of the mat is sticky, and I'm going to grab that glitter cardstock and I'm just going to stick that on the front of the mat, and then I can insert that into the Cricut Joy, and then I'm going to press go on the Cricut Design Space. So that's bringing that into the Cricut Joy. Again, it's going to take it all the way through just to make sure that it's going to have enough cutting area, and then it's going to cut those 3 thanks onto here. I have sped this one up quite a bit. It does tend to cut really quite quickly, but obviously it does depend on how intricate it is. With glitter cardstock, it cuts once and then it does cut again just to make sure that it gets the complete depth through the glitter cardstock. So now that's cut really nicely, and again I'm going to try and remove the mat from the actual material rather than the material from the mat. And I just take my time here just to go through, you know, all the way around it to make sure that I don't damage any of those die cuts, because they really are quite intricate. I really put this Cricut Joy through its paces in the kind of tininess of these words. I'm just removing one of those little pieces on the inside just to show you, and then I apologize that I am a bit off screen here, but I'm just using a tool here and just lifting that die cut off, and then all the little pieces of the inside of the letters came off quite easily as well. And so that's my die cut sentiment cut from glitter cardstock. Next, I want to create a vellum heart for my die cut to sit on. So I'm going into the shapes here on Cricut Design Space, and I really love the shape of this heart, so I'm going to keep it as it is and just change the size of that. And again, I'm grabbing a ruler here just to make sure that it's going to fit with the sentiment that I've already cut. And once I'm happy with that, I can press make it. I'm again going to pick that I'm going to cut it on the standard mat, and then I'm going to grab my mat itself. For vellum, I like to use the LightGrip Mat, and this is the extra long one. You don't necessarily need the extra long one, but that's kindly what Cricut sent to me, so I'm using the light grip one. I just find it a bit nicer for vellum rather than the standard grip one. So I'm just taking a sheet of vellum here and placing that down onto the mat there, making sure that that's really well stuck down, and then I can place that inside the Cricut Joy, and that's already sending it through. And again, just making sure that it's the right size. So I cut this once from using a setting that wasn't correct. Vellum isn't actually on the Design Space as a material that the Cricut Joy can cut. And so I tried a few different settings and it didn't work the first couple of times. And then I decided to try the glitter cardstock setting. And like I said before, it cuts it twice. This vellum is really quite thick. If it wasn't so thick, it probably would have cut it the first time on like the paper setting. But I did the glitter cardstock and it cut absolutely fine. It just took me a little while to figure out which the right setting was. Ideally, you would kind of do a test cut and just like cut a little circle or something like that so that you knew that you weren't going to waste the material. But I'm not that kind of person and I just went straight for it and decided to try and cut it. But that worked out fine in the end. So next I want to create a little accompanying sentiment, and for this I'm using the text tool and I'm just typing out for everything. So my sentiment is going to read thanks for everything. I'm going to find a font here. I want to make sure that because I'm going to draw it with the pen tool, I want it to be a single line font. Otherwise it's going to draw it, as like a bubble font. So I'm just changing the size of it here. I want to have the line width, kind of like the width of the space in between the letters a bit smaller, so I'm just changing that first, and then I'm going to actually change the whole size of the font or the actual sentiment itself. So I'm just going through again and just reducing that down. I do want it to be really quite small because my thanks die cut is quite small. I want this accompanying sentiment to be quite small as well. So making that really tiny, and then I'm going to change that to draw, and then I'm also going to change which pen I'm going to use. So I want to use the extra fine tip, and that's the 0.3 setting. And I'm going to click on that. I'm going to use the black pen. To be honest with you, the colour doesn't make that much difference if you change it, but it's just nice so that you can see which colour you're using. There are loads of different pens that you can use with the Cricut Joy. There's glitter ones, there is gel ones, there's all sorts of different pens. I am just using the extra fine point in the black, like I said, but do be aware that there are loads of different ones that you can have. So I'm just moving this time on the mat because I want to make sure that there's enough space to be able to cut round it. I could get design space to be able to do that, but I'm just going to do it traditionally instead. So here I am removing the kind of opening the clamp and removing the blade, and then I'm adding in the pen tool here, and then the Cricut Joy is gonna again push the mat through, and then it's going to start drawing with this pen. And I find this is a really great feature. Sometimes even if I haven't made anything with the Cricut machine, but I want a sentiment that I just don't have a stamp for, I often use the Cricut to be able to write out a message, and it looks like it's stamped, to be honest with you, and you can pick any font you want that's on your computer, which I think is great. So here, as you can see, it's just using that pen tool to write out the sentiment, and it does take a little while. It's quite precise, which is really nice. But it does take a little while, but that's absolutely fine. No problem at all how long it takes. It is really fairly quick, but you know, this particular one was a really tiny little sentiment, and I think it did take a bit longer because it was smaller. But I really love how it turned out, and then I can just remove that from the Cricut Joy, and then I'm going to cut that down. I have then just assembled my card. I have stacked up the thanks sentiment, so I have two from white cardstock and then the top one from the glitter cardstock that we cut. I have cut down the for everything into a sentiment strip and added that below with some foam tape and stuck those down onto the vellum heart, and then those are adhered onto a panel that I have done some ink blending with distress inks on. I love that you can kind of combine like traditional card making with electronic card making as well. I think it's really nice that you can be able to do both. I'm not saying that I'm going to stop die cutting with traditional dies, I'm definitely not, but it's really nice that if you want a particular sentiment or a particular font or anything like that, that you can use the electronic die cutting machine for that. And it's really nice, like I said, because the Cricut Joy is really portable. For my last project, I'm going to add a decal onto the front of this desktop dustbin or trash can, depending on where you are in the world. I found this image over on Etsy and I did purchase it, but you can definitely make something like this yourself in Design Space. Like I said, the possibilities are endless, but I came across this one on Etsy and I really liked it and I thought it would look nice on the front of the dustbin. So I've added that into Design Space and I'm just adjusting this size here so that it fits on the front of the dustbin. And then once I'm happy with it, I'm going to attach them all together, and that means that it's going to cut in the way that it actually is on the screen rather than change where all of the words are, so that it fits on the mat better. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to say make it. I'm going to pick that I'm using the mat. However, this actually was a mistake on my part because I'm actually using it without the mat. The new Cricut Joy, you can actually cut matless with new smart materials, and so I didn't need to press that at all. I could have said that I was doing it without a mat, and I did do it without a mat, but I didn't press the correct setting, but it worked fine in the end, so never mind. But one of the great things with the Cricut Joy is that you can cut without a mat with the new smart materials. So I'm using the smart vinyl, and the vinyl has a thicker coating on the bottom compared to traditional vinyl, so that means that you can actually cut without a mat. And what's great about you not using a mat is that you can cut things with a longer length now with the Cricut Joy, so you can actually cut up to 20 feet long. You still can only cut the 4.5 inches across with the Cricut Joy, but you can create up to 20 foot long if you're creating an image that is a repeating pattern. Otherwise, I believe if it's kind of an individual image, I think it's 10 foot, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it's great that you can cut things longer if you wanted to. So like I said, I'm cutting it without the mat, even though I pressed mat on the Design Space, but it worked fine in the end anyway. So I've just inserted that into the Cricut Joy and it's going to cut onto the removable vinyl. I am using removable vinyl just in case I change my mind and I don't want to keep it on the dustbin. I don't think I will change my mind, but sometimes I like to use removable vinyl for that kind of thing. So next I'm going to cut that down, and then the offcuts from that vinyl obviously I'm going to keep and I can use that for another project. So now I'm removing the vinyl from the backing. So just being careful to lift that up. This is quite an intricate design, so it does take a little while just to get inside all of those letters there. So just removing those. And then I'm going to use the weeding tool and I'm going to remove all of the inside pieces of the letters. And this is called weeding. And sometimes it takes a little while. This did take a slight time, but actually I quite enjoy lifting all those little pieces up. The only thing is they do get stuck to your hands. Next, I need some transfer tape, and this is so that I can lift off that decal from the backing sheet and place it onto my dustbin. So I'm just taking a piece of this transfer tape and I'm going to cut that down. So I'm just using the cutter here just to get the right size. So I can cut that down and then I can remove that off the backing sheet. So this is like really sticky clear plastic, and then I can stick that down onto my vinyl, just making sure that that is stuck down well. I'm just removing that little bit at the bottom there where I didn't place it completely straight. Ideally, you would take the time to make sure that you lined up your image with the grid lines. That's the point of having the grid lines on it. But I wasn't paying attention because I'm obviously doing this as a video and not in real life. So I'm just making sure to try and stick that down onto the transfer tape as well as possible. I'm not going to lie, this took some time to be able to lift off the letters. Like I said, this is really intricate, and as you can see, the font is really thin for the letters. So I'm just taking my time just to try and lift that up. I do take some time to go back over it again with the scraper tool and the brayer. And here I'm just using the other tools here just to kind of lift that off. So again, I'm removing the backing backing really from the actual vinyl. Once that's all completed, it looks something like this, and I'm going to then bring in my dustbin here, or my trash can, whatever you want to call it. I can turn over that adhesive transfer tape, and then I can press that down. So this is sticky, but you can lift it up and you can manipulate it so that you get it exactly where you want it to be. And then I'm going to press down all of those letters. So first I use my fingers, then I grab my brayer here just to press that down really well. And then I'm going to use the scraper tool to hold down the vinyl letters while I peel back that transfer tape. Now, I'm no expert when it comes to vinyl. I'm very much a newbie here, but this is how I like to do it, and it seems to work quite well for me. So I just take my time going through all of the letters. Like I said, using that scraper tool just to press down onto the actual vinyl and then removing the transfer tape on top. And that's stuck down really nicely. And then I do go over it once I've lifted all of that transfer tape off, just with my fingers, just to press that down. And I think I go in with the brayer once again as well, just to make sure that that's completely stuck. Like I said, this is removable, so it does peel off really quite easily, but I like that in case I change my mind. But I love how this came out. I think this is a really kind of fun font, and I think this will look really nice on my desk. So just pressing that all down really well. And that's that little dustbin finished. Like I said, I think it looks really nice on my desk. So that was a very quick look at the new Cricut Joy. I think it's excellent. I'm really happy with how it works, and it's, like I said, really quick to kind of get going. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.